This video was made possible thanks to the support of our amazing patrons. We couldn't do this without you.
Don't forget that you can support the channel for free and receive 10% off orders over $10 at Flipside Gaming by using the promo code Affinity at the checkout. Or if TCG Player or Magic Madhouse are more your thing, then be sure to place your order through our affiliate links in the description. Once again, at no extra cost to yourselves. Hello everyone and welcome back to Affinity for Commander. My name is Alex and today we've got a game involving new commanders from Kaldheim. We have the best black-green elf commander, a card-drawing squirrel, the god of winter himself, and an owl that just really likes to draw cards. And today we are joined by the fantastic Jolt539, a fellow content creator who produces near daily EDH and Brawl content, although we won't hold that against him here. Our fantastic guest social media and other links will be down in the description box below, which we highly encourage you to go check out after watching this video. Speaking of this video, it's also our second video for our March giveaway, where you can be within a chance to win one of our 5 €20 vouchers to spend any way you want at the lovely card market. To be within a chance of winning, you just need to do 3 simple things. Be subscribed to the channel, like this video, and comment below what you would personally spend that lovely voucher on. Winners will be announced at the end of the month, and once again, thank you Card Market for helping sponsor the channel with this helpful giveaway. In related news, we also now have a Card Market affiliate link, so if you're in Europe and wishing to satiate your thirst for that delicious cardboard crack, then be sure to check out our link down below. But for now, onto the game.
My commander is Lathril, Blade of the Elves, heading an elf tribal deck. My opening hand is made up of Yiva, Nature's Herald, Dwynen, Giltleaf Dean, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, Elvish Visionary, Beast Within, Twilight Mire, and a Forest.
Phil is playing his Vega the Watcher, card draw tribal deck, I guess? His opening hand is made up of Una's Grace, Radical Idea, Temple of Enlightenment, Flooded Strand, and 3 Plains.
Jolt is playing his Toski, Bearer of Secrets Enchantress deck. He keeps an opening hand of Courser of Kruphix, Song of the Dryads, Hydra's Growth, and 4 Forests.
And finally, my commander is Jorn, God of Winter, heading a Snowy Sultai value deck. I keep an opening hand of Lightning Greaves, Sculptor of Winter, Icefang Coatl, Graven Lore, a Snow-Covered Forest, a Snow-Covered Island, and a Snow-Covered Swamp. I am chosen to go first and start things off with a Snow-Covered Forest and then pass to Martin.
In my turn I play Path of Ancestry and pass.
For Phil's turn he plays a Temple of Enlightenment, leaves the top card of his library where it is, and ends his turn.
Jolt plays a basic forest and passes to Alex.
I play a Snow-Covered Island as my land and then cast Lightning Greaves. I then end my turn.
In my turn I play a forest and then cast Elvish Visionary. I scry with Path of Ancestry and then draw a card before ending my turn.
Phil draws, plays a Plains, and then passes.
Jolt plays another forest and then also ends without casting anything.
For my turn I play a Snow-Covered Swamp, and then cast my commander, Jorn, God of Winter. I pay 0 to equip my Greaves to Jorn, and then move to combat. I declare an attack at Martin, triggering Jorn to untap my snow permanents. Martin takes the 3 commander damage, and I move to my second main phase. I cast Into the North and search my library for a Snow-Covered Forest. The land is put into play tapped, and I pass to Martin.
I play a forest and then cast Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Moving to combat, I attack Phil with my Elvish Visionary for 1 damage. He takes the damage, and I move to my end step. Here Phil casts Radical Idea, draws a card, and then moves to his turn.
Phil plays a Plains and then casts his commander, Vega the Watcher. He then ends his turn.
Jolt begins his turn by playing a forest and then casts Courser of Kruphix. He reveals the top card of his library to be Enchantress's Presence. With nothing more to do, he passes the turn.
In my turn, I play another snow-covered island and then cast a Sculptor of Winter. I then ask Phil what power and toughness his commander has, and he responds,
It's an owl. A doo.
Appalled by this joke, I cast Blizzard Brawl. Using the Snowy Sorcery, I have my Sculptor gain +1/+0, indestructible, and then have it fight Phil's 2/2 owl. The spell resolves and the owl is destroyed. I then move my shoes over to the indestructible Sculptor and move to combat. Here I attack Phil with both of my creatures and trigger Jorn to untap my permanents. Phil takes the 6 damage and I then end my turn.
I play Twilight Mire as my land for turn and then cast Arbor Elf. I scry from Path of Ancestry and keep the top card of my library where it is. Tapping 3 mana, I then cast Bounty of Skemfar. Using this, I put a swamp onto the battlefield tapped and put an Oracle of Moldiah into my hand. Yes, it is an elf. The rest of the cards revealed are put on the bottom of my library, and I then pass to Phil.
For his turn, Phil plays a very pretty Flooded Strand and then casts Azorius Signet. He then ends his turn.
Jolt draws Enchantress's Presence and reveals 3 visits to be the next card on top of his library. He then plays a forest and casts his commander, Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Moving to combat, Jolt declares an attack against Phil with his Courser. Phil declares no blocks and takes the 2 damage, allowing Jolt to draw a card from his commander's ability. The next card in his library is revealed to be Gingerbrute, and Jolt then ends his turn. In response to this, Alex casts Graven Lore, which lets him scry 5 and then draw 3 cards. Now that is a bit silly.
It's the guy you don't need to worry about of Jace's ingenuity.
Anyway, Alex then moves to his turn.
For my turn, I cast Marit Large's Slumber. I scry 1 from its ETB and leave the top card of my library where it is. I then cast Icefang Coatl, which lets me scry a card from my Slumber and then draw 1. For my land, I play a Shimmerdrift Veil, choosing its colour to be green. I scry again for my Slumber, bottom the card, and then move to combat. I attack Martin with just Jorn, and all my permanents then untap. Martin chooses to not block and takes the 3 damage. Keeping my mana up, I end my turn.
In my upkeep, I scry 1 from my Bestiary and bottom the top card of my library. I then declare my intentions to remove Alex's Slumber from the board, to which he moans about already having made the token.
It was hand-drawn and everything, you mean person.
Anyway, I cast Elvish Mystic and scry 1 from my Path of Ancestry. I leave the top card where it is and tap 3 mana to cast Beast Within, targeting Marit Large's Slumber. The enchantment is destroyed and Alex is gifted with a 3/3 Beast token. I then move to my end step, to which Phil responds by sacrificing his Flooded Strand, losing a life to put a Prairie Stream into play untapped. He then also casts Una's Grace, targeting himself and drawing a card. Finally finished interrupting, Phil moves to his turn.
Phil plays a Plains and then passes without casting anything.
Typical blue player. The next card in Jot's library is revealed to be a forest, which he then plays with his Courser, gaining a life. He then reveals Cultivate to be the next card on top of his library and casts Enchantress's Presence. Jolt then casts Gingerbrute and activates the Biscuit's ability. He attacks me with both his commander and cookie themed monster. I choose not to block and take 2 damage. Jolt draws 2 cards from his commander's ability and reveals the next card in his library to be a Soul Ring. Jolt discards down to hand size and then passes the turn to Alex.
Now just wait 1 minute there.
What?
I've got loads of open mana here.
Oh right, in his end step Alex casts a Torrential Gearhulk. He uses the Gearhulk's ETB to cast the Graven Lore in his graveyard, drawing 3 cards and then moves to his turn.
For my turn, I play an Evolving Wilds, which I sacrifice immediately to put a snow-covered swamp into play tapped. I then tap 6 mana to cast Moriet of the Frost. I have the Shapeshifter enter as a copy of my Ice Fang, allowing me to draw a card.
Did you just pay 6 mana to copy a 2 mana creature?
With Death Touch.
Alrighty then.
Moving to combat, I attack Jolt with Jorn and Martin with both my Gearhulk and my original flying snake. Jorn triggers and all my lands untap, as do 2 of my snowy attackers. Martin blocks my Gearhulk with his Visionary and then damage occurs. Jolt takes 3 from Jorn and Martin takes 1 from my flyer. I then pass to Martin.
In my upkeep, Phil reminds Alex that his Moriette should have 2+1/+1 counters on it. Good job, Phil. I then play a forest and cast Oracle of Muldiah. I scry the top card of my library to the bottom with Path of Ancestry, and then reveal Shamanic Revelation as the top card of my library. I then end my turn, and Phil responds by casting Chemist's Insight, drawing 2 cards, and then proceeds to his turn.
Phil starts his turn off by casting Deep Analysis.
Does Phil actually run any creatures in that deck?
You know, I would not put it past him to not. He draws 2 more cards and then plays Myriad Landscape. Phil then casts a Talisman of Progress before moving to his end step. Here I respond by casting Abrupt Decay, destroying Jolt's Enchantress's Presence. The enchantment is put into the graveyard, and Jolt proceeds to his turn.
Jolt draws for his turn and reveals Thran Dynamo to be the next card in his library. He then casts the Sol Ring that he just drew, and casts Song of the Dryads on my Oracle of Muldiah. I wanted more lands, but not like this. Jolt then enchants Toski with a Hydra's Growth, putting a +1/+1 counter on the fluffy little squirrel. Jolt then activates his Gingerbrute's ability and moves to combat. He attacks Phil with the cookie and me with his commander. I respond by flashing in Vega, Nature's Herald, paying a green mana to the bestiary to draw a card. I then block the squirrel with Vega and Phil takes the 1 damage. Jolt draws the Thran Dynamo and reveals Snakeskin Veil as the next card in his library. He then ends the turn.
In my turn, I play a Verdant Catacombs and then cast the Spirit of the Alder Glade. To save time, I also crack my Verdant Catacombs, losing 1 life. I put an Ice Tunnel into play with my fetch land and put Faceless Haven into my hand with the Bear's ETB. Paying 0 mana, I equip my shoes to my 12/4 Snowy Bear and then move to combat. Here I attack Jolt with my Gearhulk and my Hasty Bear, Phil with Jorn, and Martin with my Flying Death Touchers. Jorn triggers, untapping my Snowy Permanence, and Jolt blocks my Bear with his Courser. Moving to damage, the Courser is brutally savaged by my Bear, and Jolt takes 5, Martin takes 4, and Phil takes 3. In my main 2, I move my shoes back over to Jorn, and then pass to Martin.
I start my turn by scrying the top card of my library to the bottom. Next I cast Dwynen, Guiltleaf Dean, scrying a card from the top of my library to the bottom with my path. I then cast my Shamanic Revelation, drawing 4 cards and gaining 4 life. For my land for turn, I play a forest, and then end my turn wishing to hold up blockers for Alex's Swole Bear.
Phil plays an island and then recasts his commander. He then casts Sentinel's Eyes and attaches the aura to his owl. Phil then ends his turn.
In his upkeep, Jolt puts another +1/+1 counter on his commander and then plays a basic forest. He then casts Thran Dynamo, followed by 3 visits because Jolt apparently likes ramp. Jolt puts a basic forest into play with the spell's ability and then starts to take a deep interest in Alex's bear.
You leave my bear alone, Jolt.
Jolt casts Kenrith's Transformation, targeting Alex's spirit bear. The bear is turned into a 3/3 Snowy Elk, Jolt draws a card and then moves to combat. He attacks Phil with Toski and me with Gingerbrute. No blocks are declared, I take 1 and Phil takes 3 squirrel damage. Jolt draws 2 cards and then moves to his main phase where he casts Exploration. He plays a forest as his additional land for turn and then passes to Alex.
I play Faceless Haven as my land for turn and then cast Dead of Winter, which gives all non-snow creatures -14/-14.
A one-sided board wipe then?
Hey, I lost my Gearhulk and Beast.
You poor thing.
Anyway, in response to this, Phil retraces Una's Grace, this time drawing 2 cards thanks to his commander. Dead of Winter resolves and all non-snow creatures are lost to the blizzard. Moving to combat, I attack Jolt with all of my creatures. Jorn untaps all my permanents, and then damage occurs. Jolt takes a modest 12 damage, and I then end my turn.
In my turn, I square the top card of my library to the bottom, and then draw. I play Swamp, and then cast Protean Hulk.
That seems safe.
It's fine, don't worry about it. Using my path, I cast Llanowar Elves, scrying and then paying a green to draw a card from my bestiary. With nothing more to do, I pass to Phil.
Phil starts his turn by casting Seagate Restoration. He draws 8 cards and has no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Phil then plays a Glacial Fortress and with 1,000,000 cards in hand, ends the turn.
Jolt plays a forest and then recasts his commander. He then casts Canopy Cover, enchanting his wee squirrel. Not yet finished, Jolt also enchants Toski with Predatory Urge. Lacking any haste for his squirrel, however, Jolt is forced to pass to Alex without attacking.
I play another snow-covered forest and then tap 3 mana to animate my Faceless Haven. Moving to combat, I attack Jolt with Jorn and my Faceless Haven, Martin with my 2 flyers, and Phil with my Elk and my Sculptor of Winter. Everything untaps, and Jolt blocks my Haven with his indestructible commander. No other blocks are declared, and Jolt then takes 3, Martin takes 4, and Phil takes 5. I then pass to Martin as I've drawn 3 lands in a row.
I play a forest and then cast Dwynen's Elite. I scry 1, and then pay a green to draw a card of my bestiary and make a 1/1 elf token. Next I cast Putrefy, destroying Alex's shoes.
Rude?
I then also cast Pride of the Perfect, giving my elves a nice power boost. Moving to combat, I attack Alex with my Hulk, which he doesn't block, taking the 6 damage. I then move to my end step, where Phil activates his landscape, sacrificing the land to put 2 islands into play tapped. He then proceeds to his turn.
Phil plays a Sea of Clouds as his land for turn, and then casts Shabraz, the Sky Shark. He also then foretells a mystery card. Phil then casts a Worn Power Stone and ends the turn.
Jolt plays a forest and then moves to combat. He attacks me with Toski, and I am unable to block, taking 1 damage. Jolt draws a card, and lacking any helpful spells to cast, passes the turn.
For my turn, I move straight to combat, animating my Faceless Haven as I go. I attack Phil with my flyers and Martin with everything else. Jorn triggers and all my permanents untap. Martin then blocks Jorn with his 3/1 elf token, and Phil declares no blocks. Martin and Phil take 9 and 4 damage respectively, and Jorn and the elf token die. In my second main phase, I tap 5 mana to cast my commander's other side, Caldring the Rime Staff. I then tap the staff to be able to cast MacLeod's Slumber from my graveyard, which I do. I scry 1 card to the bottom as my enchantment enters the battlefield.
Tapped.
Sorry, it enters tapped. I then play a snow-covered island to scry once more, again bottoming the card. Set for a big tentacle welcome next turn, I pass to Martin.
That is a phrase I never thought I would hear. I play a forest and then tap 3 to cast Azori, Renegade Leader, scrying from my path and paying a green to draw a card. I also cast Wood Elves, again paying a green to draw. With the Elves ETB, I put a basic forest into play, and then cast Skemforce Shadow Sage, which when it enters, I choose for everyone to lose 5 life. I then move to my end step where Phil discards a land to be able to recast Radical Idea from his graveyard. He draws, puts a +1/+1 counter on his shark bird thingy, and then proceeds to his turn.
Phil draws, puts a +1/+1 counter on his bird shark, and then plays Celestial Colonnade as his land for turn. He then recasts his Sentinel's Eyes from the grave and enchants his shark. Moving to combat, Phil attacks Jolt for 6, which he is unable to block. Jolt takes the damage, and Phil then ends his turn.
Jolt starts his turn by casting Sylvan's Safekeeper, and then moves to combat. Given that I am the only player who lacks flyers, Jolt attacks me with his commander, dealing me 1 damage. He draws a card and then casts Argothian Enchantress. Next Jolt casts Gaia's Touch, drawing a card from his Enchantress. He then plays a basic forest and passes to Alex.
In my upkeep, MacLeod's Slumber triggers, and Phil responds this by casting his Foretold card, which turns out to be Mystic Reflection, targeting the Llanowar Elves. I, wanting a MacLeod token and not a mana dog, respond with Spell Swindle. But Phil, having a million cards in hand, also responds with Broken Concentration. My counterspell is Swindled, and rather than a 20/20 flying indestructible token, I put a token of Llanowar Elves into play.
What a beautiful token it is, dear.
You know, I always thought I should have been an artist. In my actual turn, I tap Caldring to recast MacLeod's Slumber, scrying one to the bottom.
Oh no.
It's fine, don't worry about it. Moving to combat, I attack Phil in the air with my 3/3 Coatl Copy. Phil responds to this by casting Farm to destroy my attacker. Feeling a little bit less safe now, I cast Icebreaker Kraken to ensure I end this turn with at least one Tentacly Boy out. I use his ETB to keep Toski tapped for the next turn and scry one card to the bottom. I then end my turn.
I start my turn by scrying one and keep it on top of my library. I then cast Fierce Empath and use the Elves ETB to search my library for Craterhoof Behemoth, putting the beast into my hand. Next I cast the Behemoth, which gives all my creatures +8/+8 and Trample, with all my elves still having a further +2/+0 from my enchantments. Moving to combat, I attack Jolt of my 11 power Llanowar Elves, Phil of my Wood Elves and Dwynen's Elites, and Alex with everything else. In response to this, Phil casts a Snapcaster Mage and recasts his farm, targeting my elite. In response, I activate Azori's ability to regenerate the elf, which does unfortunately remove it from combat. Alex then blocks my Shadow Sage with his Death Toucher and Azori with everything else. Jolt declares no blocks and Phil blocks my Wood Elves with his Snapcaster Mage. Both Alex and Jolt take a lethal amount of combat damage, Phil is reduced to 1 life and my Shadow Sage and Azori are destroyed. With Jolt now eliminated, my Oracle stops being a tree. Hooray! I reveal a top card of my library to be Greensun Zenith, and feeling pretty confident, pass to Phil.
Phil draws for his turn, doubling his life totals to 2 thanks to his Shark, and puts another +1/+1 counter on the Winged Predator. He then casts a Psychosis Crawler.
Oh no.
Phil then discards 3 lands to recast his Una's Grace 3 times from his grave.
Oh no.
He draws 3 cards, gains 3 life, puts 3 more counters on his Bird Shark, and Martin loses 3 life. With his newfound life, Phil then flashes back Deep Analysis, losing 3 life himself.
Oh no.
Phil draws 2 more cards, gains 2 more life, Martin loses 2 life, and the Shark gets another 2 counters. Moving to combat, Phil attacks Martin with his 11 power flyer, reducing Martin's life total to 0 and winning him the game. Well, talk about a win out of nowhere. Congratulations to Phil and his Shark Bird thing. And thank you again to Jolt for joining us for this exceptionally fun game of Magic. Even if I never did get to make my MacLeod token. Soon, my precious. Soon. And that will be the end of the video for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to let us know below what you would spend that €20 voucher on for a chance to win. As always, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content. And you can also follow us on Twitter @4Commander, or if you really like us, you could consider becoming a patron of the channel yourself for access to exclusive EDH related rewards. As always, I have been Alex, and I will see you next time.